Two of the interviews that were off as far as time or whatever, of course, Charles Oakley and Bill Clinton, who those are the ones you want to have people be laid at and go to different hotels.
If you could choose 106 people, if you could choose the person you don't want to be late for.
There you go. So I want to go to that then. You brought it up. You talk about propaganda. I was going to save this till later, but one of the things that I think you got across so well in this documentary is the building up and building up and building up of Michael Jordan and the fun times, and then the tearing down and tearing down and tearing down of Michael Jordan, culminating with his father's murder, the horrific way the media treated him, and then the retirement, and that was really the low point. And, in a far less microcosm, this is big. This is such a stretch on my part, Jason, but your documentary had this life of, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing in the world. Oh my God, this is fantastic. Every episode's better than the previous one. And we sit here now finished with the documentary, and it's almost universal as more F-18s go above head. It's
getting lower and lower. He's vectoring into my nostrils.
It's almost universal, the praise for this thing, but you are seeing Scottie Pippen's pissed off. Horace Grant's calling it a so-called documentary. You alluded to it, but now that you have, Mike Greenberg, I saw you interact with him on Twitter the other day, where Greeny was like, I'd be pissed off too. How much of that do you pay attention enough, but how much of it's garbage?
Well, some of it's, I also know a lot more, like, to go back to your first question, I know a lot more about, we all know that if you say the wrong thing to the wrong person, it can go viral, and you never know what you could say. But I'm acutely aware now, and there's one anecdote that I can give you an example for, and please get me back to the original question, because I know I'm all over the place. But the Richard Deitch wrote an article that came out. They gave the first 8 episodes to 25 or 30 journalists, and there was an embargo on it, which meant that they couldn't release their stories until the Wednesday or Thursday before the premiere, which is on the 19th. But they gave them these things a week or two in advance of the 19th, and so they could watch the 8 episodes, write their pieces, and then they weren't allowed to release them until midnight on that Wednesday. And I remember I was not privy to that rollout pattern, so all of a sudden my Twitter just started blowing up. And I was like, what is happening here? And it was all the reviews started coming in from all of these people. Dozens of reviews started coming in. But Richard, they had an agreement with Richard, I think, that his story was going to come out a day earlier. They were going to give him that exclusive. And in that story, which Richard did an awesome job with all of the pieces he's written about this thing. And I don't mean that because he was complimentary most of the time. I mean it because he was fair and he was responsible. And Leslie Morris wrote a review that was probably a 3-star review. And I got his number from a mutual friend and texted him and said, that's my favorite review. Is the most fair and accurate assessment of the doc. Its weaknesses and its strengths. I know the doc has weaknesses and shortcomings. I know that. And Wesley did too, but Wesley is a Pulitzer Prize winning writer. The guy's a poet. So, but anyways, Deitch said in the piece, tell me about the first time you met Michael. And I said to him upon our first meeting, why do you want to do this? And he said, I don't. And I said, why not? And I said that he told me because when people see this footage, they're going to think I'm a horrible person. That was me paraphrasing Michael Jordan. He definitely did not say those words. Horrible person. He did not say that. I think he said because people aren't going to understand it. He immediately brought up Scotty Burrell. He's like, you got this guy named Scotty Burrell. And I MF'd that guy up and down the court all year, but I needed him to be tough and blah, blah, blah. So I used the word horrible. People are going to think I'm a horrible person. That all of a sudden got picked up by every news outlet as Michael Jordan said this, to the point where I go to ESPN and Paul Pierce is being interviewed and they're showing a full screen graphic that says people are going to think I'm a horrible person when they see this documentary. Michael Jordan. Paul Pierce, how do you feel about Michael Jordan saying that? He never said it. So that's why I bristle when you say Scottie Pippen is pissed. I don't know that he is. I know that people are saying he is. I know that I've read sources say Scottie Pippen is very upset with his portrayal. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Horace Grant did say on the record, on the radio, that this thing is a so-called documentary and it's 90% live. And I have no problem with that. I had a great time with Horace. that actually is one of the guys that I would spend a couple of days with. Because Horace could not have been nicer to our crew. He was just this happy dude. He lives in a beautiful part of California up in the Central Coast. Like, more power to Horace. I think that he's pissed off specifically that Michael said he was the source, Horace was the source of Stan Smith's book. And I think Horace is sick of hearing that. And whether he was or he wasn't, he thought Michael was snitching on him. And then he said, well, you're the one who said these guys were using cocaine back then. Whatever he said, he said. I don't think Horace actually has a metric where he can say, okay, it's 90% lies. Officially. There's 1,000 facts told and 900 lies told about those, like 900 untruths. He's just spouting off, and I get that. People, you mentioned Greenberg, people like that who I feel should know better. And saying Scottie Pippen couldn't possibly be portrayed worse than he was portrayed in this documentary. I take offense to that because I think we portrayed Scottie accurately. Is there a doc to be done about Scottie Pippen's athletic greatness? Yes. We devoted a lot of time to him in the front of the series, which is like the marquee time in the series. If you go back to episode 2, Michael says, whenever they speak my name, they should speak Scottie Pippen. I would not have 6 titles without him. He is the best teammate I ever played with. And then we have teammates throughout this thing saying how great Scottie was. Now, I went to great lengths. We went to Hamburg, Arkansas to show the abject poverty in which he grew up. To show people that's why he took this very conservative 7-year, $18 million deal because A, he knew it could all go away in a flash because he had 2 people in his family who were confined to wheelchairs from a stroke and an accident. And B, he needed to know that he could take care of his large family who was poor down in Arkansas. And he wanted to be sure he could always take care of them. And $18 million over 7 years is something that could achieve that. I wanted to show people that's why he made that decision. He's not stupid. He did this because he loves his family. That's why. So when people say he couldn't have looked worse, yes, he could have looked worse, Mike Greenberg. He could have looked way worse. And the reason I get fired up about this is because Greenberg and his ilk know better. They know that's not true, but they're trying to get as much mileage out of this thing. I understand. There's nothing to talk about. You know that better than anybody in your line of work. There's nothing to talk about. I get that. But don't create things to talk about at the expense of my integrity and the integrity of my team, because we work too hard for that, and I won't stand for it. I won't stand silent for it. And I've been told, as soon as I clapped back at him on Twitter, and immediately I got like 4 texts from my dad and my mom. My dad doesn't know how to use Twitter. He's saying, I can't follow this. Who said what first? But he's ready to go fight for me.
Right.
But what he's saying is don't listen to these people. This is a little bit, inside and private, but I'll say it because it's a compliment. Bob Costas reached out to me a couple of times, unsolicited, because I've known him for 20 years. I was his PA back in the early 2000s at HBO, and I met him at NBC when I was a PA. And he's become a friend and a great one at that, because unsolicited a couple of times in the last couple of weeks, he said, don't listen to these people who are doing it. The fact it's 90% positive and 10% negative, and the 10% negative is actually more of a compliment because it's people who either are outside of our business and they don't understand. That means it's transcended the sports documentary world, or they're jealous, or they're just saying these things because they need to get clicks or airtime or whatever. So it meant a lot. That's, it goes back to your first question. What have you learned? I've learned a ton about what to say and what not to say and how to navigate these kind of minefields every time I do an interview like this. I don't have to do this with you. I don't have to do this with any of these things. My contract calls for a, quote, reasonable amount of promotion. It got unreasonable after the first week. But I want to get the word out there because I'm proud of our team so much that I want to get out there and explain why we made the decisions we made and how we made this thing and how hard we worked to get it on the air when we did. So yeah, it's I don't have kids. I'm not married. I don't have kids. This thing is my baby right now. This thing was just born to the world, and when people are criticizing your kid, of course you're gonna defend it. And I'm criticizing or they're criticizing my teammates if they're criticizing this film. And that I won't say. I don't care. You can say whatever you want about me, but when I start to think of how hard people work, people put their lives on hold. People who do have kids, who do have families, who were scared as hell to be coming into the office while this pandemic was going down and people were saying stay out of the office, and they still came to work side by side with each other, not knowing if we were going to be sick or not. Like that means a lot to me. And for someone to come at us like that, that's when, I don't have a great temper. And, I'm pretty impulsive when it comes to defending my friends and defending people I love. So that's why I respond to the things like that. But as far as, I don't know if Scotty's unhappy or not. I hope he's not, because I like Scotty a lot. And I think that we did our best to do right by him and tell his story as responsibly and accurately as possible. I think what he did in Game 6 of '98 final is nothing short of heroic. And I wanted to convey that to people. Anyone who wanted to say Scotty was soft after the migraine game or anything else, just look at that game and how he performed. And as far as Horace goes, I get why he's angry at Michael, and who knows what's in their past. I take no offense at what Horace Grant said. But when other media members want to say that this is propaganda and it's a puff piece, and why didn't they do this? Why didn't they do that? Well, when you know nothing about the decisions that went into this, Michael Jordan never once said anything about this has to be in, this has to be out. Never once. That's not the role he played in this. So when people say that it's a puff piece and it's seen through Jordan's eyes, and the inference from Greenberg was that Scottie Pippen, his role was diminished in this doc because at Michael's behest, which is patently absurd, and that I can't stand by without commenting on that. And I think I said to Greenberg that you have absolutely no idea how this doc was made and how the editorial decisions were made. You are absolutely wrong. There's zero truth in what you're saying, and you're just saying it to have another segment on TV, and that I resent.
Well, then we can wrap that part of the interview up by this. Going into the premiere night one, I know your phone must have been like a vibrator going off constantly and buzzing all the time. But I don't know if you remember me texting you saying thousands of people are going to hate this documentary because of its reach. Mm-hmm. Focus on the ones that love it, which are going to be millions. Do you think, looking back now, I know it's hard, and I know you are an artist, and I know you are protective, but grading yourself, do you think you've been able to handle yourself and your emotions throughout this thing as best as you can based on that?
Yeah. Because believe me, I want to say way more. Mm-hmm. Way more.
Sure.
But I'm not. Mostly because I won't put the people, both the ones I just mentioned on my team, I won't put them, I won't expose them. If they don't want to get into this fight, I'm not going to fight on their behalf.
Sure.
And also these partners. We had knockdown, drag out. There's a lot of blood on the floor in the room where this thing was made. But all of us, we had this Zoom call the moment before an hour before the first show premiered, and all of the partners who I've been on the phone with and in rooms with for years, and we have had brawls about this thing, about what should be in and what should be out, and what song should be played here and what shot should be used, and you spend too much time on this, you spend too much time on that, but every single person in that room was heard. Every single person has a battle that they won and a battle that they lost, and the thing came out the way that it came out. I rarely say that I'm proud of anything that I've done, because I'm always thinking, we need to do this, need to do that. I'm proud of this documentary, and I'm proud of the people who made it. I'm proud of the people who compromised. I'm proud of all of us who came to the table thinking, yeah, everyone has a vision, but my vision's going to win. Well, nobody was right when it came to that. Nobody. ESPN, Netflix, the NBA, me, all of us had a vision for what this thing was going to be, and I think we thought, yeah, that's going to be what it's going to be. And none of us were right. And you know what? The doc is better for it. Too many cooks in the kitchen spoil the broth or whatever. Too many cooks this time actually worked. So there's too much blood, sweat, and tears in the last few years for me to not respond to certain things, but I am happy with the fact that I've bitten my tongue a lot of times in the last few weeks. Now, there will probably never be, and I am acutely aware of the circumstances under which this was viewed, and the fact there was nothing else to watch. It's a safe, nostalgic, fun story. It brought people together for 2 hours every Sunday night. It was sorely needed. So I'm acutely aware that this thing, I'm not Fellini. This is not Citizen Kane. I get that. But I'm proud of the fact that we could entertain people, that we could achieve so many of the things that I love sports for, bringing people together, connecting people, having people all meet in a common place and then discuss it afterwards, fight about it, argue about it, agree about it, disagree about it. We checked so many of those boxes with this stuff. So the reason I love sports is the reason I love the experience of making this thing. Jason
Hehir is the director of The Last Dance. We're unwinding that. there's something called the Ken Burns effect. And by the way, that's a whole different topic we don't need to get into, but that was another fun ride we spoke about a couple weeks ago. I call it the Jason Air iPad, and I'm too ignorant to know whether, I'm sure somebody's done that before. I don't know. I've never seen it. I guarantee you that's going to be utilized quite a bit in documentaries from here on out. When you look back on that and that process, I've asked you on the air before how that came about, but did you have an inkling that I'm just talking simply about the iPad itself, which almost became its own character. It got to the point in the doc, Jason, where when the audience would see the iPad come out, we all just braced for something awesome. Did you feel like that's how that was going to go?
No, I did not know that. And by the way, I did not create that. I've used that myself, that technique, the technique of showing someone something. Listen, go back and watch Gimme Shelter by the Maysles Brothers, which is a brilliant documentary about the Rolling Stones. And there was a concert that they gave at Altamont, and they hired the Hells Angels for their security, and someone was stabbed to death during the concert by the Hells Angels, and they caught it on film. And they had Mick Jagger and Keith Richards sit down and watch this on a screen, and they filmed them watching this footage. Now, that wasn't the impetus for this. That wasn't the inspiration for this. But this technique has been used over and over again. We've used it in Bernie and Ernie. The 30 for 30 that about 14 people watched, but I gave people not an iPad, but an iPhone, and had them watch Bernard King breaking down, crying, talking about how he was beaten by police in Knoxville, Tennessee, when he was a student at Tennessee. So I just thought it was a cool way. I think I've told you the story, and I'll tell it briefly. Is that I one of my first times I ever met Jordan, I gave him my phone and had him watch. There's a YouTube clip of all the fights that he set to music, and he was just locked in. And he just started like mumbling under his breath, chicken scratch. He got kicked out, I didn't, like little things like that. And I was like, man, this is the key. This is the portal, because he doesn't know me, and I'll probably never see Michael Jordan again in my life, but he knows those people. And he knows their voices and their faces. And I figured, all right, if that is what gets a rise out of him, let's give him this thing. And there's a lot that were duds that we gave him. His Little League coach and some other stuff we gave him. But yeah, I did not know. I never once, none of us were thinking, like, this will make a great meme. Let's put this in. John Michael Wozniak, the security guard, we got such a kick out of that, our staff, that he all of a sudden became like the breakout star of that episode.
Yeah.
And John Michael, rest in peace, is no longer with us. But I never thought, there was a version of this thing that didn't have that moment in it. Just because we were going to cut it for time. I always was like, I said, this is some of the best assets we have. It shows that Michael is constantly playing games. It's for $20. It's not like this guy. I told you the story about being in the town car with him.
No,
the SUV. So this is the same day that I showed him those fights. That tape. We were going from a Midtown hotel to the Barclays Center.
This is you and Michael, you and Jordan, or you?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
And this is the second time I've ever met him, and we're gently starting to discuss, like, okay, at this point I didn't know, are they going to let me talk about gambling? Are they going to let me talk about the dad? Can we talk about baseball? I didn't know. This was years ago, and this was months before we even filmed with him. So I'm thinking I have like an on-ramp to these conversations. I have it like choreographed how I'm going to bring these things up. They're sensitive topics. We get into the SUV, and I don't even think he knows my name at that point. And door closes, and the SUV pulls away from the hotel, and he turns to me and he says, I bet you we see 10 pairs of Jordans on the way to the arena. There was no money. There wasn't $1 million on the line. There wasn't $10 on the line. There wasn't $1 on the line. It was just a gentleman's bet. He just wanted to play a game. So it's not this pathological need to gain money from wagering. It's a habit he has. I don't want to call it pathological, of always having to have some sort of game going on. That's why I thought that the iPad is a toy, basically. That's a game. When I pull that thing out, as excited as you are at home just watching it, I'm sure that his heart rate goes up a couple of beats too. He knows he's about to see something. It's going to be fun for him. So to finish that story, I'm thinking we just got to get down 57th Street, and then we get on to the FDR. So there's going to be no Jordan scene on the highway, and then we get off the highway, we go right to the arena in Brooklyn. I'll take that bet. Yeah. He said, all right, I bet you we see more than 10. So we see like 4 on the way to the FDR, and then we get the FDR is the highway that runs along the edge of Manhattan. And we get on the highway, and of course, we're not seeing anything. And we're talking about Dennis Rodman, and then we're just really getting to know each other and talking about the scene. We get off the exit, and we're going to the arena. And the closer we get, the more people are filing into the arena. And it's the Jordan Brand Classic. That's the name of the event. And so everywhere I look, there's not 10 Jordans. There may have been 10,000 pairs of Jordans that we're seeing. There's a packed house, and everybody has their nicest Jordans on because they're going to the Jordan Brand Classic. And I said, well, that's not fair. This is the Jordan Brand Classic. Of course there's going to be more than 10. And he turns and he just winks at me.
Yeah.
He knew. This is what I think happened. I think he walked outside of the arena, and I think he has a habit of looking at people's shoes and seeing, like, he's constantly thinking, like, who's wearing what. And I think it crossed his mind. I don't see a lot here, but I bet we'll see a lot when we get to the arena. He didn't say that. And I think he thought, okay, I can win this game. I already have it won. So I'm going to throw a bet out there, and I know I'm going to win it. I think that's what he was thinking. And it was playful. There's nothing on the line. But he won that game. That, to me, that says more about him, and that is him and his essence, more than any story that I can tell.